Hello, everybody. Thank you for coming. I've had a request to do a lot more Tesla content because somehow I've infected a lot of people and they bought a lot of Tesla this year and they want to eliminate some of the FUD that they keep hearing from other people. So this is going to kill two of the biggest pieces of FUD on Tesla. So let's just jump right in. It's called Tesla Grid Will Fail? Question mark, of course. And everything I do is edutainment, not financial advice. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It's been the most incredible year for everybody. So thank you all for being here. And the story really is, where is Tesla going? Will it break the grid? Can the grid support charging all the EVs? We've got these S-curves. Everything is happening really fast. And the question is, can the grid catch up? And by the way, I have an entire Tesla playlist. If you're only interested in Tesla, subscribe to that playlist. The link will be below. And it has some incredible models baked into it as well. And of course, all these models are on Patreon too. So first of all, let's jump into, and thank you as well to the mods in the chat. I see you. First of all, there are two main pieces of FUD why people either hate Elon Musk or Tesla or don't buy EVs. One is the cost. And the second part is charging. The grid will fail. I don't want to buy an electric car because it's not going to make it. I'm not going to be able to charge it. There are no charging places, etc., etc. And then you have a lot of political senators, etc., kind of ripping it apart, saying it's simply not sustainable. Well, this video today is to break all that down and with numbers and math, calculate if it is possible. So let's go to another thing as well. First of all, I made an entire video of the new Model 3 versus ICE, like Toyota Camry, when I should have actually taken a Toyota Corolla, but that would have been just too unfair. But there is nothing where Toyota is even close to what Tesla does. For the money, for the value, for the range, for the technology, for the safety, it is just embarrassing. And they're cheaper. Now, let's talk about FUD number one, cost. EVs are expensive. Well, if you look at a Toyota Corolla versus a new Tesla Model 3, they are actually a lot cheaper. That is, the Tesla is a lot cheaper, coming in under the price of a Corolla. But remember, Tesla's not a Corolla. In fact, many consider it a luxury car. It's not even a Camry. It's far better. So now we have a new piece of FUD, and that is charging and grid will fail. I'm not able to charge my car. There will be no electricity to charge my car. EVs are going to break down the electric grids. And let's go ahead and find out now. Another piece of news just popped in yesterday, a few hours ago, was Volvo quits diesel car production. Volvo is a huge car maker, and for them to quit diesels after all this time is a sign that ICE is changing very, very fast. I keep talking about the tipping point and S-curves. This is another data point here. Diesels, toast. Now, tipping point, I have touched on how these countries, once they hit 5%, they go to 30% real quick. We're talking real quick. So as I say, put your seatbelts on because this is happening. You can look at the canaries in the mine, places like California, places like China, places like Norway and Sweden, and how that tipping point actually happens. In addition, Germany just hit 31.7% battery electric vehicle adoption. They are smashing, literally. The delta between July 2023 and August 2023 was like 10 percentage points. Insane. That's how fast these things happen once a revolution begins. We'll see the same thing with crypto as well down the line. So right now, I'm going to break down, I called it FUD Eradication Time. With numbers, I'm going to tell you why the only last remaining piece of FUD that people have about cars and charging is no longer valid. So BEVs are cheaper. Now, can they charge them? So let's go. First of all, let's look at just the US electricity demand. I will talk about some German grid capabilities as well. But this is a US electricity overview of demand, forecast demand, net generation, and total interchange. I had to Google what total interchange was. I wasn't even known. But the point is, all I want you to take away is, as you can see from the chart, demand varies from 400,000 megawatt hours per day to 700,000 megawatt hours per day. And of course, it is sometimes energy dependent. If you're in a hot place or a cold place, that can drive a lot of energy. But the key is, when people sleep, they don't use electricity. Okay, so that's the big takeaway. And when people sleep, that's when typically people charge their cars. If they're out all day, they come back, they plug it in the garage at night, and off to the races. So that's the first piece. Remember that delta between the bottom and the top, the 400,000 megawatt hours to 700,000 megawatt hours. Now, a lot of people say, oh, EV charging, it uses more electricity than anything else. No, it doesn't. In homes with EVs, the electricity use of an EV is less than air conditioning, it's less than heating, it's less than water heating, and in some places, sometimes it's less than clothes dryers, depending on how much laundry you have. And you do. If people run their dryer every day, this assumes just once a week running the clothes dryer. And they burn a lot of electricity, more than it takes to charge your car. So, again, fourth on the household appliance list, or fifth, depending on how much you dry your laundry. So yes, EVs are not going to break the grid, but it is an extra load to be sure, but it is manageable. Let's look at some more data. Now, 12 years from now, this is a forecast. By 2035, light-duty electric vehicles, which excludes semi-trucks, very huge, large trucks, and airplanes, they are projected to comprise about 14% of electricity usage. All right. So for the grid to manage and support light-duty vehicles, cars, etc., they need to be able to grow by that amount. So the question is, can it do it? The answer is yes, of course it can. Now, in addition, this is from the Limiting Factor. Shout out, I subscribe to their Twitter. But remember, 67% of all housing units in the United States have vehicle parking within 20 feet of an electrical outlet. And that's how long the typical cable is for a Tesla charger. Remember, people can charge at night when they come home. All they need to do is roll out the cable, plug it in. They're good to go. And overnight, your car will be charged again. But there's a lot more to dig into too. Now we're going to get into some heavy miles with some crazy statistics. So we're just talking about the US here, and I'm sure it's, very high in other parts of the world as well, like Germany, where they drive a lot, and Italy. But the total annual vehicle miles traveled in the US is approximately 3.26 trillion miles a year. Wow, that is staggering. And this converts to about 9 billion miles per day. Okay, that's 3.26 trillion divided by 365 days. Now, astronomically speaking, 1 light year is the distance that light travels in 1 year in the vacuum of space, approximately 5.88 trillion miles. So 3.26 trillion miles would be just over half the distance that light travels in a year. That's insane. In addition, the average distance from the Earth to the Sun is about 93 million miles, hence 3.26 is about 35,000 trips around the world. Again, a lot of miles. Another one as well, Earth's equator, it's about 131 million times around Earth's equator. So let's jump in and find out exactly how much power is required to do all these miles. Well, if you look at this here, considering the average EV, in fact, the average Tesla covers about 4.17 miles per kilowatt hour of electricity. So we just assume 4 for this. The total daily electricity requirement for powering all vehicles to do all those miles would be 2.25 billion kilowatt hours. Okay, let's go a little bit further. The EV range and average miles per car today, again, all modern EVs get greater than 300 miles, about 485 kilometers at least. That's the minimum, unless you're buying a really crappy one. Average American mileage is 37 miles per day, only 5 days per week, by the way, not 7 days per week. So the average driver does 187 miles per week, and one charge will cover way more than a week. In fact, if you're a little bit careful, it'll cover 2 weeks. So the fact that people need to charge their car all the time is complete FUD. In fact, later today, I've got about 4 different places to go to. I will be driving 270 miles with FSD, and I'll do it all on one charge. Now, off-peak charging time, nighttime. So to assess the electricity grid that can handle demand, you have to look at the current electricity supply and the demand curve during the day. And if EVs were charged during non-peak hours to utilize the excess capacity available that we showed at the very beginning, the supply and demand curve would flatten. This implies a more efficient and balanced use of electricity. Remember, if electricity is parked in a substation, it depletes, it loses power. So the fact that it would actually make the grid more efficient if it was used to capacity at nighttime. And there we have it. but there's more. So this is crazy. So the available excess capacity for the grid during non-peak hours is 2.9 billion kilowatt hours, which is 30% more than the 2.25 billion kilowatt hours needed to power all vehicles in the US if they were all to switch to electric overnight. So the point I'm trying to make is it can be done today if people choose to charge, mostly like 70% of the time during off-peak time. The grid is capable of supporting the complete transition to EVs as long as the charging is managed to flatten the curve. So that is a huge breakthrough. So this basically eradicates all FUD, all fear that people have, like, oh, I'm going to run out of battery, or I won't be able to charge, or it's going to bring down the grid and the whole city or state or country will have no electricity. That is simply not true, as we just proved. Now, there are some things coming online that's going to help a lot. People may think, oh, well, solar, wind, nuclear, hydro doesn't really work. Well, it does. But these are the energy sources that are going to be built up as we go forward. A lot more solar, a lot more hydro, a lot more wind. And to prove that it's possible, in Hamburg or Munich, Germany, so Hamburg, they already produce 2.9 billion kilowatt hours. Remember that number? From renewable sources exceeding demand of private households. And by 2025, the current share is 39%, projected to increase to 100%, equaling 7.5 billion kilowatt hours. But of course, it'll cost $9 billion, 9 billion euros. But again, can it be done? Yes, the Germans have done it already. And this tweet is from the year 2020. Imagine how much they're doing now. So the other part of the future too, and that's why I made a little investment this morning, because it was all tied to all of this. There is a reactor in the sky called the sun, and it's free power. Just people need solar panels and a place to store it, like a Tesla Megapack or Tesla storage facility. And if there's enough sun in that area and they have enough panels, they can actually sell electricity back to the grid. This is what happens in places like Texas all the time. This is where the world is going. People will have their own self-sufficiency with electricity. In fact, tons of people in the community have already done this. And it's the way of the future. So this is no longer hocus pocus, pie in the sky, future vision. This is today, and it exists. So quick conclusion to everybody who says EVs and Tesla are going to bring down the grid. Well, no, the FUD is dead. US electricity grid has the capacity already to support every car flipping overnight to an electric vehicle. Again, provided that charging is distributed wisely to utilize off-peak excess demand. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. We are already here, and there'll be a lot more of this as we go forward. So with that, everybody, just a quick one today. I keep hearing that everywhere I go. Every time I do a Tesla video or talk about Tesla, people say, oh, the grid won't handle it. The grid won't handle it. It's not true. So there you go. And the pace at which Tesla is growing, and companies like that remain nameless, like Enphase, will be insane as we go forward. So a very exciting time to be on the alive. And remember, you got to be there before the S-curve pounces. Now we're at that pounce level. So big thank you, everybody. Thank you to mods in the chat for being there. And I got to go boogie out. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you.